Hey there, Dr. Dallas Bragg here, recovery coach for gay men who want to break free from the addictive patterns of crystal meth and live their best and highest life. Today we're talking about discipline, and not in a way that you've probably heard about it talked about. We are inundated these days with Instagram reels of guys on the grind. Like they're doing their yoga, they're doing their cold plunges, they're scaling Mount Everest, they're running their business, they're fucking their boyfriend. We are brainwashed about what it means to be disciplined. So today, I'll explain how to truly leverage discipline for your recovery. On this channel, you'll find lots of resources to help you break free from crystal meth or TINA and attain your best and highest self. Also, don't forget to look for my podcast. It's called the After Meth Podcast here on this channel as well. When you type it in, make sure it doesn't autocorrect to after math. Make sure it's after meth. I'll drop a long form video just like this one every Saturday. The podcast drops every Thursday, so turn on your notification bell. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss anything. By the way, if you're interested in my one-on-one coaching program, it's called Recovery Alchemy. The link to apply is in the show notes. Through weekly one-on-one sessions, weekly group sessions, and daily accountability, your life could look much differently than it does now. So, let's talk about discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It's not shame. It's not even about willpower. Real discipline is about loving yourself enough to create conditions where you can truly thrive. It's about making small promises to yourself and keeping them. It's about building trust with the one person who will be with you for your entire life, you. When we were in active addiction, we betrayed ourselves every day. Each promise broken, each value compromised, each morning waking up with that crushing weight of I did it again. These experiences shattered our relationship with ourselves. So often we grant ourselves the title of undisciplined. I know that I did. I began idolizing many people who I defined as disciplined. A weightlifter with a great body, a scholar with a wall of accolades, a spiritual leader with a massive following, a business executive driving a Mercedes. But then I made the effort to get to know these people, and a peek behind the curtain allowed me to see the real story. The weightlifter was addicted to validation. The scholar was living up to their parents' expectations. The spiritual leader was afraid of going to hell. The business executive was fueled by power. If you want to be truly set free by discipline, you must take a look at the motivation behind your behaviors. Discipline's root word is disciple. A disciple is one who follows the teachings of a person or doctrine and integrates those teachings into their everyday. So, if you want to be disciplined, you are incorporating doctrine into your everyday life. So, where many of us get this wrong is that we become disciples of unhealthy doctrine. So, for example, the weightlifter is a disciple of the I am not enough doctrine. So the driving force of his discipline is based on limiting beliefs about himself. So from the outside, he appears to be a disciplined person. On the inside, he's crying out for help and relief from his shame. So I invite you to stop giving yourself a hard time for not being a disciplined person. And I invite you to reframe discipline in a way that propels your recovery journey and the life ahead of you. So what if discipline isn't about forcing yourself into rigid patterns through sheer will? What if it's about choosing which teachings are worthy of your devotion and then allowing those teachings to flow naturally through your daily life? So let me share 5 powerful doctrines that have transformed my recovery journey, doctrines worthy of becoming a disciple of. Number 1, the doctrine of embodied wisdom. If you've been high on meth, you've been disconnected from your physical body, hence the word high. We numbed sensations, ignored warning signs, we pushed beyond limits, we treated our physical vessel as disposable. We became disciples of disconnection. So what if instead you become a disciple of your body's wisdom? This doesn't mean becoming obsessed with fitness and nutrition. It means developing reverence for the intelligence that lives in your cells, the wisdom that speaks through your sensations, the guidance that emerges when you finally get quiet enough to listen. Become a disciple of embodied wisdom. It looks like this: creating simple daily rituals of checking in with your body, not to judge it, not to fix it, but to witness and honor the sensations. learning to distinguish between the voice of your body and the voice of active subconscious patterns. They speak different languages. Recognizing that physical sensations often precede emotional awareness. The body is keeping the score. The body is communicating with you. Treating your nervous system as sacred territory that deserves protection, respect, and conscious regulation. And honoring your circadian rhythm instead of fighting against it. You can Google that if you're not familiar with circadian rhythm. We're going to talk more about that later on. Making decisions based on how they feel in your body, not just how they sound in your head. I spent years being a disciple of disconnection, floating above my body as if piloting it remotely. I allowed life to direct me as if I were a balloon attached to my own wrist. And when I shifted to becoming a student of my embodied wisdom, something profound changed. The discipline of checking in, of listening, of honoring what I discovered became effortless because it wasn't motivated by shame. It was motivated by devotion to reconnection. All right. So 2 is the doctrine of creative sovereignty. Most of us in recovery spent years abdicating our creative power. We surrendered our sovereignty to substances, to destructive relationships, to impulsive decisions, to shame spirals. We became disciples of powerlessness in the worst way. So what if instead you become a disciple of your own innate creative sovereignty? So it's not about being artistic, right? It's about recognizing that you constantly create your reality through your choices, the way you perceive the world, your actions, and especially your words. Every moment offers an opportunity to create anew rather than react from old programming. Being a disciple of creative sovereignty looks like this: developing awareness of when you're creating versus when you're reacting, reclaiming your power to choose in every moment, however small that choice might seem. Recognizing that your attention is your most precious resource and directing it consciously. Creating intentional environments that support your vision rather than triggering old patterns. Asking, what am I creating right now? When you're feeling stuck or you're feeling reactive. Treating your mind as sacred creative territory worthy of careful curation. Digital boundaries that protect your creative energy from manipulation and distraction. For years, I was a disciple of reactivity. I was bouncing between triggers and numbing, completely unconscious of my creative power. I was under the false belief that my mental state was because of my external circumstances. The truth is, my mental state caused my external circumstances, the way I saw them. You create your reality by choosing who you respond to and perceive life events. When I began to study my sovereignty, I noticed the moments I could choose differently and create intentional spaces that reflected my values. Discipline stopped feeling like a constraint, started feeling like freedom. This is the key to discovering your recovery journey. You get the opportunity to create and decide how you want it to look. Number 3, the doctrine of authentic value. So in and before active addiction, many of us built our sense of worth on quicksand. External validation, external performance, people-pleasing, status symbols, temporary highs. We became disciples of conditional value, always chasing the next thing that would make us feel worthy of existing. But what if instead you become a disciple of your inherent, unchangeable value? This means recognizing that your worth isn't something you earn, it's your birthright. Your worth and your potential is encrypted into your DNA, the same as the acorn's potential is encrypted into its DNA to become an oak. Your worth is inherently yours already. It exists prior to your achievements, relationships, recovery milestones, or your mistakes. Being a disciple of authentic value looks like this: practicing financial choices that reflect self-respect rather than self-punishment or self-indulgence. Creating boundaries that honor your needs without requiring justification. Developing the capacity to receive care, praise, and support without deflection. Noticing when you're trying to earn your right to exist and gently redirecting. Giving from abundance rather than depletion. and making amends as an act of integrity rather than shame on me. Building skills that allow you to contribute meaningfully to your community. Listen, I spent decades as a disciple of prove my worth. I exhausted myself through achievements, people-pleasing, perfectionism. But when I began studying the doctrine of inherent value, of worth that couldn't be earned because it already exists in me, my relationship with discipline transformed. If you believe in the doctrine of your inherent worth, you will alter the way you show up in the world. I was no longer trying to prove something. I was honoring something that already existed. My question for you is, what would you change if you approached each day from the unshakable knowledge of your inherent value rather than trying to earn it? All right, number 4, the doctrine of conscious community. Most of us in addiction became disciples of toxic connections. Relationships based on use, convenience, codependency, transactional sex, shared trauma. We learn to perform rather than to be authentic, to manipulate rather than communicate, to isolate rather than risk vulnerability. But what if instead you become a disciple of conscious community? It's about developing relationships grounded in authenticity, mutual growth, and genuine care, connections that elevate rather than deplete your energy. And this community doesn't have to be limited to people in recovery or gay people. Being a disciple of conscious community looks like this: practicing radical honesty about your needs, your boundaries, and your experiences without fear. Choosing relationships that reflect your highest vision rather than your deepest wounds. It reflects your future. Developing the capacity to sit with discomfort in relationships rather than avoiding it. Creating intentional rituals of connection with those who matter most. Learning to receive feedback without defensiveness. Navigating queer spaces with clarity about your values rather than autopilot. Building chosen family based on shared values rather than convenience. Allowing yourself to be known, truly known, by at least a few safe people. I spent years as a disciple of toxic connection, mistaking intensity for intimacy, drama for passion, and enabling for support. When I shifted to studying conscious community, to treating relationships as sacred territory, worthy of intention and care, discipline in this area stopped feeling like restriction and started feeling like liberation. My personal sober community came in the form of a group of hippie dippies I met during an ayahuasca retreat. These people allowed me to be me, unapologetically and unconditionally, in a way that I had never experienced. For the first time in my life, I truly felt accepted. All right, number 5, the doctrine of evolutionary purpose. While in active meth use, many of us became disciples of escapism, avoiding the pain, responsibility, and meaning through chemically induced oblivion. We lost touch with any sense of purpose beyond immediate gratification or immediate survival. We interpreted our active meth use as a moral failing, a diversion from our true purpose. We existed, but we weren't truly living. So what if instead you became a disciple of your evolutionary purpose? Your life has meaning beyond your pleasure or your pain, that your experiences, even the darkest ones, have equipped you to contribute something unique to the world. The darkness prepared you to shine your light. You can read more about this in my newsletter, Why You Chose Meth. You can go to drdallasbragg.com, click on blog, and you can search Why You Chose Meth. Being a disciple of evolutionary purpose looks like this: creating daily practices that connect you to something larger than your individual concerns. Recognizing your recovery journey as preparation for meaningful contribution. It's developing skills that allow you to transform your wounds into wisdom. It's finding ways to be of service that energize rather than deplete you. It's treating your recovery as sacred ground for discovering your authentic gifts. It's making choices aligned with legacy thinking rather than immediate gratification. And it's embracing challenges as opportunities for evolution rather than obstacles to happiness. I spent years as a disciple of escape, running from discomfort, avoiding meaning, numbing any sense of responsibility beyond my immediate desires. Discipline became devotion when I began studying my evolutionary purpose, treating my recovery as sacred preparation for contribution rather than just abstinence from destruction. This is also the key to leveraging what I call a losing episode or relapse. A disciple of evolutionary purpose understands that every single thing that happens in our life is occurring for us to contribute to our growth and highest self. So, from discipline to devotion. So when we shift from trying to force ourselves into rigid patterns, like I said, through punishment, shame, and willpower, to becoming disciples of doctrines worthy of our devotion, something miraculous happens. Discipline transforms into devotion. What felt like restriction becomes liberation. What felt like burden becomes privilege. And what felt like work becomes worship. The practices themselves might look similar on the outside, which is constant recovery meetings or honest communication, financial responsibility, physical self-care, but the energy behind them, this is what's important, is completely different. You're no longer pushing against resistance, you're flowing with reverence for your doctrine. The secret transformed my recovery is that I stopped trying to become disciplined and started asking which teachings were worthy of my discipleship. So remember, discipline isn't about harsh control or rigid perfection. It's about becoming a devoted student of teachings that liberate rather than confine. You've already done the hardest thing. You've broken free from being a disciple of destruction. Now it's about choosing which doctrines are worthy of your devotion as you build a life beyond your wildest dreams. I see your highest self emerging through your recovery, and I think you do too. And I want to say that I honor your journey of becoming a disciple of your own magnificence. All right. Magnificence. Sorry about that. I love you all. I'll see you next week.